Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Judy Byron. I'm the Adult Program Coordinator here at the Waterbury Library. Joe Camerata approached me last fall about this series, and so this is our third in it, and we're going to be talking about financing. And we have, let's see, what have we done? We've done design and construction was last month, and then we started out with the zoning and permitting, so all the different phases. So it's my pleasure to welcome Owen Seti Ducati with Revitalizing Waterbury to the stage. Thanks so much.
Thank you for that. So just before we get started, we are going to go over a bit of the agenda for this. This session is the Financing ADU Construction session of the Building Better Waterbury series. We have Jeff Teplitz from Community Bank, who will be going over general financing options for homeowners. We have Ryan Carpenter from Downstreet Housing, who will be going over kind of VHIP-specific programs that Downstreet's administering, and then I will give a brief overview of the Waterbury housing improvement program that we've been developing. So on the agenda, the Waterbury Municipal Plan the goal is to kind of create new housing in locations that are kind of already developed, kind of promoting infill housing, areas with water, sewer access, so on and so forth. This is in line with state goals for housing in the state, is to focus on kind of the areas which there's already development, so we can maintain the natural nature of Vermont and continue providing Vermonters with homes and the ability to work and play in the state. Few items that have been fundamental in that is the Home Act, which reduced a significant zoning burden on new developments in a variety of ways. It also allowed for accessory dwelling units on single-family homes to not be, they have the same requirements as building a single-family home. They can't be, more requirements cannot be applied to those, which encourages ADU development and allows people to develop these accessory dwelling units without fearing DRB kind of setbacks and impacts and so on and so forth. Do you want to go back one? This is in tandem with the Unified Development Bylaws. Town of Waterbury has been updating their bylaws to allow for more usages in the downtown and Route 2 areas. And then we've got the Vermont Housing Improvement Program, which we're talking about today. This provides $30,000 to $50,000 for individuals looking to develop one of these accessory dwelling units and provide unit rehab. And then the Waterbury Housing Trust Fund, which is money that has been allocated by the municipality with the focus of developing housing and looking at these programs. The benefits of small-scale development preserves the unique character of Waterbury by integrating additional housing into existing neighborhoods, supports conservation of open space and farmland, allows residents to shape the future of Waterbury through local investment, tailored to meet the needs of a broader range of income levels, and it allows property owners to leverage their existing asset, their land, for additional income. And so this is the goal of the education series, which is to educate property owners who might have questions regarding financing, regarding zoning, regarding construction, and make it a little bit easier for them to engage these programs and get started on building ADUs. With that, I would like to introduce Jeff to the stage.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jeff Teplitz with Community Bank, also Will Eggleston with me. We are regional lending specialists. Will is right here in the Waterbury branch. I'm typically in Chittenden County, but totally accessible to all of you guys. So we are your local mortgage bankers, ready to serve and to assist you guys. Community Bank, if you guys remember, we were the old merchants, got bought by a bank out of New York. We cover northern New York, Pennsylvania, western Mass, New Hampshire. All told, I think we have 17 branches in the state of Vermont. And not sure which side. Yeah, so when you're working with Community Bank, you really are working with somebody here in the community to help you out and educate your clients throughout the process or quality of service and smooth transaction. So the big question for you guys is, how do you finance ADUs, right? And as you heard Owen talking about the benefit, and this is a hot topic all across the state of Vermont right now. I know in Chittenden County, they're talking about it a lot, in Burlington too, is increasing the density population in the smaller areas so that we keep the beauty of Vermont, provide more strong housing. And then the benefit of it to the homeowner is that you're adding value to your property. When you go to resell, you're selling something that has a rental unit and potential more income. So how do you finance the addition of an ADU? Well, the easy way is with the equity in your house, right? So you cash out refinance. Depending on what your equity position is on the house, it's easier to either do a straight cash out refinance, take out the money from on your first mortgage, consolidate it, or if you have no mortgage, taking out a first mortgage. There's also a home equity line of credit or fixed rate home equity loan. The line of credit and the equity loan are a little bit different. They work similar. The line of credit gives you more flexibility and you only pay for what you've used of that, where the fixed rate home equity loan is a one-time payment and then you start paying the full balance immediately. The benefits of both of those is that, or even the home, the cash out refinance, the benefits of those are that you have the flexibility to use the contractor you want, do the work yourself, etc. Right? You don't have to start dealing with all the different ways of like jumping through the hoops to do this. Like there's the cash in your hand and you get to choose what you do. The next option is, right, so we just talked about the advantages of a home equity product, and that, you can go to the next slide. So they're inexpensive, they're simple, they're fast. We can usually close them right in our branches, so they save a lot of money, right? And again, the benefit of you being able to use your equity how you want to use it. And then there is a renovation loan. So we're going to slide one more. So if you don't have the equity in your house, right? So if you're not, say that you have a property that's worth $500,000, you owe $200,000 on it, you can easily take a $100 or $150 or $200,000 up to 80% of the loan to value. That's the quick, easy way. Well, what if you don't have the equity in there, but you want to do this project, right? So then what we're going to do is we're going to do a renovation loan. That could be your answer. And again, they're great products, and there's a few different steps to it. So we're going to step one. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to read these. So I will. So step one, right? You're going to preparation. So a renovation loan, you are going to consolidate the first loan in together with it. So you are combining, if you have a first loan, you're going to combine them. But what you're going to do is you're going to select a contractor. You're going to review it with your contractor. You're going to decide what work needs to be done. You're going to need plans and specs. You're going to need, so you're going to decide what the project is. You have to decide that in advance. You have to have plans, specs, costs. You're going to take that in. You're going to bring that into your lender. They're going to review the plans and specs. Let's say that you have a project that's going to cost you $100,000. You've got a $200,000 loan on the property already. They're going to take the $100,000. They're going to put a little contingency in there because you never know what overages come, extra expenses come. So they're going to tack on a little bit of extra money to put it away into the escrow account. The lender's going to you're going to go through the loan process, and it's going to be based on the $200,000 that you owe, plus the $100,000 project, plus the 10% contingency. So you're going to roll that all into like a $310,000 loan. They're going to pay off at closing. They're going to pay off your old loan. They're going to give you the new $110,000 as a escrow account. So if you need some money, they write out a check, pay off the builder, pay some supplies, etc. Right? Step two.
When you switch that loan over, are you giving a new interest rate on both of these options? Or, for instance, if I have a loan and I'm at, a sweetheart 2.5%, now I'm doing all this.
If you're doing a renovation loan, it is going to consolidate the first mortgage. If you're doing an equity line of credit, then you leave the first loan and it's a second lien position loan.
So in the first instance, I would get a new interest rate.
In the renovation loan, you would get a new interest rate. In the equity line of credit, your first loan would stay where it is. Your second loan would have its own interest rate. Cash out refinance would be a combined. So, yeah. So if you're renovating, so line of credit would, or a home equity loan would probably be. We'll talk after. All right. So phase two on the renovation, right? So we've done all of our background, right? We've reviewed the plans, the specs. We've gotten an appraisal on the property. The appraisal is going to be done as is, right? This is where if you don't have the equity in your property, they're going to consider the renovation project that you're doing, the building of the ADU, as additional value to that property. So this is where if you don't have equity built in, you're going to now have, let's say your house is currently worth $400,000. You're doing a two-car garage with a unit above it. Well, maybe it's adding $150,000 of equity to it, right? Or the $100,000 that you're spending. So we're going to use this money to the as to be completed value at the end of it, right? So then the third part here is the completion, right? We go to closing. As I said, started getting ahead of myself. We're going to pay off that first mortgage that you might have at 2.5%. We're going to take the new loan for the $350,000, and we're going to start to dole out cash as needed along the way. There's inspections. The appraiser comes in and verifies that the work that said was to be done in the plans and specs are done satisfactorily and meet those standards, so that it's not just like, oh, I said I'm going to use stone countertops and they put Formica in. Well, that changes the value. So the work has to be match what is being done. Right? So your three options are the cash out renovation, the cash out loan, the home equity, either fixed rate loan or the line of credit, or the renovation loan, depending on your personal scenario. And we'll go one more. And that's kind of it. I mean, those are the three easy. I know you said questions at the end, so we'll leave that. Would you like me to introduce the next person?
We do not have, oh, you're up. Is Brian not here?
Yeah, seems like he's not.
So what I'm gonna do is, if you would just generally explain what's happening.
Yeah. So, Ryan Carpenter for Down Street was intended as the next speaker. He was going to go over the Vermont Housing Improvement program and kind of Down Street's approach to applications, what to expect, so on and so forth. I will be covering that for him. I have spent a good deal of time going through this program.
You want me to keep his stuff?
Yeah, I would say so. I've spent a good deal of time going through this program, but at the same time, I am not administering it 40 hours a week, so I'm probably not the equivalent level of a subject matter expert as he is, but I will do my best here. Cool. So this is just a kind of overview of the application. A portion of the application is kind of the fair housing laws, landlord-tenant mediation, and then outside of that, it looks like there is a decent amount of kind of expected documents when going through something along these lines: W-9, copy of the deed, copy of the tax bill, et cetera, et cetera. From what I have heard from Downstreet and people who have gone through this program, it tends to help to over-document at this stage. I've heard that there is a decent amount of this that is required, especially in the additional documents, and they tend to be pretty stringent about giving money out. Another thing to be aware of is that you cannot get this to cover costs that have been incurred before you sign these documents and before you sign an agreement with them. So if you're looking to develop an accessory dwelling unit and you've already started doing work, they will not cover you for costs incurred before that. Yeah. Cool. Next slide. Yeah, this just looks like a portion of the application. Kind of. Okay. Yeah.
All of these documents are available on the website.
Yeah. So those are the application segments of the award. I can speak on the award a fair bit, which is the VHIP 2.0 can offer you $30,000 to $50,000, and it is either a grant or a forgivable loan. The grant portion comes with an additional requirement that you are working with someone who is exiting homelessness with a coordinated entry organization. Grant goes for 18 months is kind of how the disbursement process works until project completion, and VHIP will check in with you, or Downstreet will check in with you step by step along the process. It's dispersed in, I think, 4 separate awards. And then the forgivable loan option, which is the more popular of the options, is a 10-year forgivable loan with a buyout option. So if you rent this out for, say, 7 years at the fair market rent, which is a portion of the agreement, you can buy down the rest of that loan. And if you want to kind of exit the program and rent at a price that you see fit. So those are the 2 options right there. Some other considerations are, I think the grant award is larger if you are going for a multiple bedroom unit. Goes up to 50K. I think 30K is the cap for a 1 to 2 bedroom unit. And you have to sign a rental covenant that is in place on the property that maintains that this unit will be rented at HUD FMR for the duration of the agreement. Yeah, so this is the rent stabilization covenant. This is pegged at your county fair market rent as decided by HUD. And essentially just ensures that for the duration of the agreement that you're renting at this place. Downstreet does not handle compliance on that. Department of Housing and Community Development does. And pretty much when you're working with Downstreet, you're going from application to the end of the grant process or loan process, and DHCD is ensuring that you are renting at the agreed upon rates. So 20% contribution is also required on this, and they will often require you to kind of show proof of good credit or the fact that a bank will lend you out, I think, $10,000 roughly in order to make up for this. Yeah. So, sorry about that. But yeah, Downstreet was not here, so you know, kind of went through that. And also at the end, if we have questions, I developed a separate presentation that is not kind of what they did there, but is a little more kind of what I would be talking about regarding the downstreet loans. So if anyone has any questions on that, I have spent a good deal of time going through that. I just haven't spent a lot of time flipping through the actual application materials. Anyway, the Waterbury Housing Improvement Program. This is a program that the Housing Task Force is developing. The Waterbury Select Board created a housing trust fund on a meeting on August 19th. This allocated a portion of the local options tax money to be used to kind of achieve the goals developed in the Housing Task Force. There's been discussion on programs. This is our first stab at a program utilizing this money. We are hoping it will be relatively successful. And it is still somewhat in the works, but the select board has signed off on 2 of the 3 asks that we have presented them so far. So this is just a brief overview of the VHIP, as I had mentioned. Incentivizes new housing capacity by offering grants to landlords for up to $50,000 per rental unit. Property owners are eligible to receive 30 to 50, depending on the size of the unit. There's also a fair amount in the VHIP one specifically of like you can do renovations on existing units that have tenants for the 50,000 as long as you agree to kind of like offset that or figure housing out for them. So if you go down the VHIP state route, there are a fair few more options in terms of what they can offer. The Waterbury program, I think, is just going to be new unit creation or creation of accessory dwelling units, but you can do this for like renovations and bringing stuff up to code on the statewide program. Participants are required to provide a 20% match. Can do in kind if you want, if you're handy and feel like doing some projects around the house. And so far, it's helped restore or build 946 units. At the moment, it is in, I think it might be in the Senate. I'm not sure, but at the moment, the state program is getting allocated one-time funding, which is how they've done this year over year. And so it is looking like it will be funded for this upcoming next year. They're trying to get it to be a permanent program, but it seems as though the Assembly is kind of sticking with this one-time funding approach. Rental covenant, which I had covered already, which goes over the length of the agreement. It's 5 to 10 years. And so far, there have been 8 applications in Waterbury. 3 projects are in progress, and a 4th is waiting legal documentation. So the differences here are, this is just kind of going over a few of the differences in the programs. The Waterbury program is going to be up to $30,000 available for project. We have significantly less money than the state does, so we decided it made more sense to kind of set a cap there. Like the state level one, we will be dispersing this on over 4 points in time during project kind of development. And we are looking to have expenses incurred within 6 months be covered by the grant agreement. We thought that seemed like a smart approach to doing this. We're only offering 5-year grants. That's because we are working with Downstreet in terms of the administration, and they do not have a brokerage license. And are not going to get one for this. And then the project must be completed within 8 months. That's consistent between the 2 programs. And so another aspect of the Waterbury one, and this is partially because of just kind of back-end logistics, like working with a coordinated entry organization is kind of a little bit more than the town wants to take on this. So on and so forth, is a little less strict in terms of the requirements. So we're not having a credit score requirement like the VHIP state level one does. We're not putting any sort of requirements on tenant selection. The portion of this going forward that is still up in the air is the select board came to us. select board came to us with our ask and said that they would like some additional kind of tenant requirements regarding perhaps renting to Waterbury workers or individuals making 80 to 120% of area median income, something along those lines to promote affordability a little bit more, which they found that given the scope of the housing task force and given the scope of the project, that we were not kind of adequately covering. So that is one thing to think about, but at the moment it is a smaller amount of grant funding. There's no forgivable loan option. There's less requirements on kind of who you pick, and so on and so forth. And that's partially just to offset the fact that it's a lower cost grant. We're also discussing administering this at 110% of fair market rent in Washington County. Reason for that is Washington County compared to Waterbury, the area median incomes for renters and homeowners are both significantly higher. This is according to the American Community Survey. Compared to the majority of Washington County, we have higher rents and higher earning. And so our thought process there was, given the earning potential and given the higher median household income, it might make more sense to peg this up slightly higher. Other topics of conversation were perhaps pegging it to Chittenden counties, and so on and so forth. And that's just because it's a smaller grant, you're getting less money. We kind of figure that allowing you a little more flexibility in your rental costs is going to make it a little more, provide a little more incentive for people to actually engage in this. But this is still kind of up in the air. Yeah, and this is just an overview of kind of the select board portions. Confirmed the Waterbury Housing Improvement Program is a permissible usage of funds. Also confirmed that Downstreet will be administering it. And as I mentioned earlier, they would like further tenant eligibility requirements to ensure the program assists cost burden individuals, which is understandable. Yeah, that's about it. Any questions?
So at this point, we'll take both of you gentlemen up front. Here.
Bring it on. What do you got?
I don't see how any of it pencils out.
I'm sorry?
I don't see how any of it pencils out. Cost of construction, site development, materials. I'm probably a prime candidate. We have too big of a house. I'd probably be happy to downsize to a smaller accessory dwelling unit for my wife and I. It doesn't pencil out. It's not even close.
I'm just going to agree with you here. The program has been successful for some individual, or has been fairly successful so far. I think where construction costs are at, it has not been penciling out particularly well. A lot of anecdotally what we've seen is individuals who maybe just have an excess of disposable income who are building these units out for, say, friends or family or as a favor or something along those lines. Yeah, I mean,
I guess that would go back to the whole question of like, does building a house from scratch today pencil out, right? I mean, if you're starting a construction project, you're buying a piece of land and building, like, what is the cost of that project today versus its marketable price? I think, you also have to look at long-term, how long are you gonna have that, and does that growth factor go up? But, I mean, two different programs, right? There's the stuff that Owen talked about with the grants and stuff. I mean, we compare on the backside of that to give you the additional cost. You get $30,000 from the grant, and then, use 70,000 of your own money, you're in at 100, now it only costs you 70,000, not the 100 to get in there. Maybe it's now more palatable to you. So pairing them together can be the way to build that accessory unit, and then you're renting the big house for who knows how much, right? In order to carry the costs. real estate in general, I think, is a long-term game, and not necessarily always, what did I pay today, what is it, you know, worth. I think some of it is sort of a, you know,
I'm afraid to say the only way it would pencil out is if we were to Airbnb our place and not go to the.
and that's not falling under these.
Right.
Right.
And then, you know, if we were to try to take advantage of some of the grant opportunities with like the rental restrictions and things like that, it's crashing and burning.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then, you know, yeah, then you're gonna talk to a bank, and you're gonna fund it yourself, and you're gonna, you know, and I don't know if Airbnb, I mean, another discussion, but.
Yeah. And just on that front, part of the reason that we're gunning for the 5-year portion of this versus 10 years is kind of to allow people to get out of that restriction quicker and kind of continue it as a long-term lease ideally, but it's only so much you can really try to incentivize people to do with their property. But ideally, people maybe take the hit on that for a bit, and then over the next like 10, 15 years, you start to kind of see that.
I've heard often that, you know, we have many large houses with just 1 or 2 people living in it. We're an example of that. And, but we're like at the end of our working career. And so when I look at something like this, you know, we're gonna make this happen, it needs to kind of be able to justify itself within 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And it won't with restricted rental income.
Yeah. And we understand that we're kind of just
But
building off the.
that's where
successes.
where the $30,000 grant makes up for that restricted rental income over that time. So if you're losing $10,000 a year in rent over 3 years, you've made that $30,000 back. So, do you guys have questions on the loan programs that might be out there in order to make this happen? If somebody was interested in building something? All right.
Oh.
Got no questions online?
No questions online?
No.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. No worries.